judges. I want ICE and Border Patrol agents. That's what I want. That's all. And we want to tell people, I'm sorry, you're coming into the country illegally. We don't want you in the country. That's it. It's now over. The Democrats want to protect illegals coming into this country much more so than they want to protect you, and that's not where we're coming from. So they don't mind crime. They want open borders. We want really tough borders.
And no more due process. That your president, as he continues to go on the attack over the subject of immigration. Democrats also going on offense. Here's Senate Minority Leader and New York Senator Chuck Schumer.
66% of the American people agree with us. They are feeling the heat. Republicans are saying how bad this is. Laura Bush said how bad this is. They are the ones feeling the heat on this issue, and that's why they're squirming.
Now, the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, he had this to say about people like Senator Schumer who oppose his policies.
We know which side of the debate is radical. The so-called elites will always find an excuse to attack President Trump. They will not be satisfied as long as we are enforcing our borders, as long as we are placing any effective limits on the immigration system.
Now, the people Sessions calls radical, well, they're pretty big in the numbers. If you look at about every poll here, the majority of voters, they're against splitting families at the border, but polls like this are showing that Republicans still support it by a good majority. Now, the numbers are even worse for the GOP when you look at subjects like the Dreamers and DACA. 79% support giving those people who are brought here as children a path to citizenship. And when you look at the president's beloved border wall, you're under 40% that support it, 58% opposing it. Let's bring in our panel right now. Jeannie Zaino, professor of political science at Iona College, also senior advisor at the consulting firm Applied Economics, and Joseph Pinion, also joining us, Republican strategist, and also GOP candidate for New York State Assembly in Yonkers, and Mike Morey, managing director at SKD Knickerbocker, and to his right, Andrew Whitman, our senior political correspondent. I go to you, Jeannie, for all things numbers here. Who's playing with more fire in a general if you make immigration an election issue for this November?
Well, you know, it's fascinating because you look at the latest polls and it's about the fifth most important issue. People are most concerned about health care, and then it goes down the list, and immigration is down around 5. The president is betting that to get out his base, he needs to make hay of this issue of the wall and Democrats being weak on illegal immigration. And if this comes down to a get out the vote drive, the president has the benefit of saying so many crazy things that the media coverage for him is 24/7. I don't know how Democrats break through that except with paid advertising, which becomes a really expensive proposition for the Democrats. So that's what the president is betting on. And I think that it is a risky strategy, to say the least, when you look at the 60, plus percent of Americans. But you have to ask how many people are going to get out in the midterm. Democrats really have to make a concerted effort. And so far in the primaries and special elections, they've been out in big numbers.
But you're talking about red populations, particularly Latino voters and stuff. And Joe, I ask you, because you're going to be one of these candidates in November that's running, do you want to be talking about forced separations, about Dreamers and the rest, or you're going to see, I'm sure there'll be a story somewhere where an illegal commits a horrific crime and takes an American's life here. Will that become the poster child, kind of the Willie Horton story here right before November? How do you navigate this? Because it almost depends on the news cycle.
Well, I think it depends on the news cycle. I think it depends on the seat. I mean, to your point, talking about paid advertising, unfortunately, I think the reality is that the president is the paid advertising for the Democrats right now. I mean, I'm running for assembly here in Yonkers, but I have a friend who's running for the North Carolina House. I have another friend who's running for the House in California. And both of them, we were all commiserating about the inordinate amount of time we spent answering questions about the border and separation of children. Things that, if we're being honest, your state House member, your state Assembly member can do absolutely positively nothing about. And so ultimately, again, yes, it gets your quote-unquote base out, but President Trump already has a mortal lock on that 33% that's not going anywhere no matter what. And so the question becomes, if you're talking about how do you maintain the House, and if you're beyond that, talking about the efficacy of these practices and what do we want to be? Do we want this to be something that 20 years ago we look at as a stain on the fabric of this nation? Then I think that politically it's dicey. I think ethically we enter into a really terrible quandary. And I think overall, I think that if you're just looking at is this good for the nation, we all lose.
Mike, all things local, I get it. A different issue in Kentucky than it is somewhere else. But take Staten Island, for example, or take the 19th Congressional District in New York, or I can pick a couple in New Jersey. My point, though, is a swing district, or even a district that leans right, if you're a Democrat, do you try and talk about other things, or do you say child separation, most Americans against that? Dreamers, most Americans make it about that. Or does it just get thrown into a giant bucket of immigration and you can't make it about one thing, it's about the whole thing?
So I think Jeannie's right, and that Donald Trump right now thinks he has a successful playbook that worked for him to get elected president, but this isn't a presidential election. And so as much as he's going to go out there, I mean, Donald Trump desperately needs illegal immigration. He needs it. He doesn't, if you solved illegal immigration today,
right,
Donald Trump probably would not be reelected to office. He needs another. He needs white working class people to be angry at someone else. That's what he's doing. Now, in a midterm election where there's no one at the top of the ticket, these are all localized elections, and the playing board this time is mostly in the suburbs and exurbs. This is not an issue that's going to work for white women in particular who turn out in midterm elections. And furthermore, you're not going to energize the Republican base to the same degree you did in a presidential election as you're going to in a midterm. So I think while he's out there doing this, he's probably this time, I hope, he's out there energizing Democrats probably more than he is Republicans when it comes to turnout in the fall. But look, make no bones about it, Donald Trump needs illegal immigration as much as he needs NFL players kneeling at the flag, because his entire presidency, his entire shtick, his entire message is that there is some other somewhere who's taking from you, and we need to stop him.
And can I just follow up on one thing Mike said, because I think it's so important. Illegal immigration from Mexico is 0%. It is way down from what it's ever been. And that is something we do not hear at all about. He has invented a problem because it helps him motivate a base that needs to find somebody to blame. And you can talk to any scholar on illegal immigration. It is down to numbers it has never been this low. So they're inventing a problem in search of a solution that doesn't need to be.
And ask scholars about jobs in the United States. The fact of the matter is job displacement in the United States is based on automation. It has almost nothing to do with illegal immigration.
But we're talking about politics here, so it's the perception that people have as opposed to what the reality is on the ground. And I mentioned this to you yesterday, Rich. CBS in their poll last week, the #1 response when they were asking about what to do with families that get crossed at the border, 48% said you should return the family and the kids back, just immediately deport them. So this is a potentially winning issue for this White House. If the issue is family separation or DACA, that hurts the White House. But if the issue is just border security and overall illegal immigration, that helps the White House.
If you're a Democrat, okay, do you say, hey, I'm for, I'm not for open borders here. We need to have immigration policy. Obama did it before. He deported people too. But when the guy says due process out the window, when the guy says separate mom and kid, when the guy says, no more dreamers, you found my line. Can you be nuanced?
I think you can. I think you can say we need comprehensive border security, but where are the kids? And why haven't you returned all? I mean, I wouldn't even make this about illegal. I would just make, if I was a Democrat, I would just be hammering, where are the kids? And when you start getting the inevitable stories about the kids that don't get reunited with their parents, or the child who gets injured or even worse while in the custody of the U.S. government, I would just keep hammering that again and again and again.
Joe, and again, you got a different district than a lot of Republicans running right now, but do they say, would you stop, Mr. President? You're making my job hard, going from difficult to impossible in certain places where you're getting people that are registering to vote that never would have turned out in November. Or do you say, I'm going to hitch my wagon to this guy because whether I like him or not, the base is going to vote when they might not have in a midterm?
Look, I think that there is a lot of evidence, irrespective of politics, that every single president that enters the White House in their first term overestimates their overall coattails, right? You have President Obama, who demonstrated that when Obama's name was not on the ballot, those coattails were not there. President Trump has already in many ways demonstrated, when you start looking at some of these special elections, that it doesn't even matter whether he comes in there on Air Force One and goes down to the Panhandle or whatever he does, that the coattails simply are not there. So to the issue of, you know, this immigration issue, I think that, again, we just should be discussing how do we fix it, right, on both sides of the issue. And I think, unfortunately, I think Democrats do have the upper hand here, because the reality is that at the end of the day, when people are paying attention in October, the conversation is going to be, how did you not find a way to fix immigration, even if it was just the way you wanted to do it,
And by the way,
when you had
just
control
put
of
a
the House?
punctuation point on it. The president said, after all this, Republicans don't bother dealing with this until after the midterms, right?
He doesn't want it solved. He was offered on a silver platter a sizable portion of what he asked for by Republicans and Democrats. Donald Trump does not want immigration solved.
All right, when we come back, the local issue, but fascinating here, and I'm frankly tired of talking about this. East Ramapo School District, more problems. State appointed a monitor, get the finances in order, but the budget in disarray, and it could get cut even more once again. We're live on the scene. Stay with us.